being a gymnast for so long, I felt like I was a shadow of that. Like I always felt like I didn't have an identity outside of gymnastics. If people came up to me, I was like, oh, you're that gymnast, right? Like they wouldn't even know my name. The person that you're staring at on the phone, they might have the quote unquote ideal perfect body, but in their mind they don't. Like everyone's still fighting the same battles of like, it's not as hard. Like we overthink so much. Like if I sat there and thought about it, I would have talked myself out of it. Like if I sat there and was like, I'm in my career already, I'm giving up this money, I'm giving up this.
Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Long-Term Podcast. I'm your host, Advin Villa. Today we have peace officer, fitness trainer, and owner of Ryot Strength, Aryana Porter. We will discuss being a high-level athlete and finding one's identity, the importance of starting a fitness training business towards financial freedom, choosing a destiny for your own path. Aryana is a very well-accomplished athlete when it comes to gymnastics, and here she is gonna go and talk about the pros and cons to being that dedicated to a sport. And it's very honest and authentic, and I'm very thankful for her today. Everyone, welcome. All right, Aryana Porter, everyone. Welcome to the Long-Term Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
How has your day been?
It's been very eventful, but very uneventful, so it's been good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know you moved all the way from BC back to
Grand Prairie. Yeah,
okay.
The wonderful, beautiful Grand Prairie.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell me a bit about your journey from a national athlete all the way to now?
Yeah. I literally remember falling in love with gymnastics from like the time I was 2. I think I started, and it was like I tried every single sport. Like I was such an athletic kid growing up, and my mom was like, try everything before you pick something. But every sport I tried, I was like, nope, gymnastics is where I want to be. So I like tried out for competitive gymnastics when I was 7, and I was very late for that. Normally people start like competitive gymnastics when they're like 5. So my mom was like, oh, just know you might not, like you might be too old for it. And I was like, okay, but I still wanted to do it. And then they're like, no, we want her. So then I kind of started my gymnastics career when I was 7, and it was like very late for most people. So I was like always the oldest one, which is like wild to think that like at 7 years old, they can be like, no, you're too old, which is just such a weird concept to me. But yeah, I started when I was 7, and then I competed I was in gymnastics for 14 years, but competitive gymnastics for about 10, 11 of those 14 years. I trained it's insane because I think people see gymnastics as such like a beautiful sport. Like if you watch gymnastics, it's like, oh, this is such like a, I don't know, mysterious, beautiful sport, but there's so much behind it that goes into it. And like we would train literally almost a full-time job of like 32 to 36 hours a week, being like 9 years old on top of school. Most of us were homeschooled. So I was like the one, like me and my best friend were always like the one that was like not homeschooled and not at a sports school. So I feel like it was even a little bit harder for us too, because we're trying to balance like full-time school on almost like a full-time job with the pressure of like growing up, being an adolescent, figuring out who you are. But kind of did that for 14 years. And then when I quit, it was just kind of like a whole new journey of figuring out like, who am I without this identity that's been attached to me for 14 years? So
yeah, I remember being in class and you had to leave early many times. Hey?
Yeah, my like schedule was, I think it started when I was like 10. Well, I left school early for like the longest time since like grade 4. But when I was like 10 is when we started doing morning training. So I would train from like 6 in the morning to like 8 or something like that. And then I'll go to school late because we did morning training. And then I would leave school at 1 because we would start at 1:30 to 6:30. Like it was wild because I feel like I was only ever at school for like 3 hours. I feel like people like would see me, but they never saw me because I was like never actually officially at school. I'd only ever be at school for like 3 hours, which also was just so hard because as a teenager, you're so like focused on your like popularity. And I just felt like I could never like express myself to people in high school because I was just never there, or I was never like a main person, if that makes sense. So I think that also was harder for myself as well. Just like growing up not having an identity outside of gymnastics and then quitting and being like, I'm in high school with all these people. I've been here for like the past 7 years, but I really didn't know anyone because I was never involved with anyone. So
Yeah.
wild.
So initially you were very passionate about it, and you were an older kid going into it,
Yeah.
being at 7
Yeah.
and with 5, 6-year-olds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were really strict with your training, hey, and
Yeah.
kind of is that normal when it comes to gymnastics, or is that just because you were talented?
I think it's a mix of both. It's really hard because kind of like I was saying, where there's so much that goes into gymnastics that people don't see, but it's literally a love-hate relationship where whenever I talk about this, people are like, it sounds like a toxic relationship where you like can't necessarily get away from it and you're so stuck to that person because of the toxicity of it almost and the manipulation. And I hate to talk about this sometimes because I feel so guilty of like, I don't know. And I think this goes back to the concept of it being a toxic relationship. But like my coaches, I loved them to death, but I also was terrified of them. And I think it goes back to like that toxic bond of like, I feel guilty talking about it because I still have love for them. But it's like, there was so many things that they just did that was not right, especially as like little kids growing up. And there was so much toxicity. And that's just gymnastics as a whole. Like, there's so many things that go into gymnastics that people don't realize, and that's everywhere. Like, that's not just the gym I went to. So like, I don't want to be just calling out the gym I went to because like it's as a whole, like gymnastics just as a whole. Even if you look online, the amount of like sexual assaults that have happened in gymnastics, like you can pull up gymnastics and guarantee the first thing that would pop up is the sexual abuse. And like it's in the States, it's literally everywhere. It's just how gymnastics is run, and it's so like secretive. Like parents aren't allowed. My gym was like the one gym where parents would be like allowed to watch, but most of the time, like there's no parents watching gymnastics practice, and that's for a reason.
Yeah,
like,
you're there.
Yeah.
For a majority of your day.
Yeah.
And when parents aren't allowed to see what's going on,
yeah,
people tend to take advantage of those that are helpless.
Yeah.
How has your experience as a high-level athlete shaped your personal identity outside of sports?
Yes. Kind of like I was saying before, I don't know, there's a lot that goes into it. Just being grown up in the sport for so many years, I got to learn so much from it. Like so many pros and so many cons, but I will say the biggest pro is just the things I learned from it, and like who I am as a person has definitely been shaped by the gymnastics industry. And I'm very blessed that I get to say that because not as many people get to experience like the experiences I felt with gymnastics. So I would definitely say like one of the biggest pros that came out of gymnastics is just like my driven and hardworking mindset and just being very goal oriented. Kind of said this to you already, where like when I was in gymnastics, I was so determined. Like I would go up to my dad and be like, I am winning this gold medal. Like I'm going to do this for you, or I will make Team Alberta for you. Like I was just so goal mindset, like oriented, that like anything I put my mind to, like I would achieve or I would be close to coming to achieve. And I think that has now almost like driven my lifestyle and my mindset to this day, where it's like my mom always says you need to think more realistic, but like every goal I have has always been so big, and I feel so driven towards my like just any goal I have for myself is always such a big one. And like it can be a downfall sometimes because I feel like I have too big of goals in my mind, but I also know it's almost like a superpower. And I definitely think that was driven by gymnastics because I was just so determined, and it created a lot of resiliency in myself as well. So I think that's a big thing that I learned from gymnastics that definitely helped me. And I just always feel like this was like a negative that turned into a positive, but being a gymnast for so long, I felt like I was a shadow of that. Like I always felt like I didn't have an identity outside of gymnastics. If people came up to me, I was like, oh, you're that gymnast, right? Like they wouldn't even know my name. They would just be like, oh, you're that gymnast. Or in school, if someone didn't know me, they'd be like, oh, you're that one that just like leaves early all the time. Or you're like an athlete, right? And I felt like I was such a shadow of gymnastics that now that I'm not in it, it has created like something in me that's just been like, I want to be somebody so bad. Like I want to be Aryana, if that makes sense. And I want to create such a big name for myself. And I do think that has like stemmed from gymnastics. And like, even though it's a negative, I definitely think it has now turned into a positive, where it's just like created such like a fire almost in my brain to be like, I need to be somebody. And like, I need to create such big goals and aspirations. And I think that like mainly stems from gymnastics and just having such a hardworking, determined outlook on things, if that makes sense.
How did it make you feel when people addressed you as a gymnast instead of your name, instead of being you?
I think I like had a lot of different, like I would always have a lot of different emotions, but I was like proud of it. Like I was like,
yeah,
oh yeah,
you're proud of it, but at the same time, they're only acknowledging your achievements,
my achievements,
and
yeah,
just your identity as a gymnast. Sure, that's a part of it, but you're more than that.
Yeah, and I think that's what I struggled with when I came to terms of like, should I quit gymnastics? And I remember telling this to like my best friend and my mom for the longest time of, I don't want to quit gymnastics because that's the only thing I'm known for. And it was such a struggle because that's literally all I was known for. That's all people in like high school would know me as. And so it was tough because I was like, am I really anything without this? Like, do I have a purpose without gymnastics? And that would always run through my head. So it was always be tough if people were like, oh, you're that gymnast, because I would be like, yeah, obviously I'm proud that I created like something for myself, but it was also hard because I was like always in a battle of being 14 years old and not knowing my identity without gymnastics. So then at the same time, I'd be like, oh, I literally am not known for anything else other than gymnastics, if that makes sense. So it's hard.
Put in so much time into gymnastics with the schedule. It's built in your day.
Yeah.
You're there more times than you're at school. People compliment you based on your performance.
Yes.
You're constantly living, breathing, and talking about gymnastics. And so it becomes a part of your identity.
Yeah.
And a lot of people experience this when they lose the ability to practice what they enjoy because they become part of it, and it's you grieve it.
Yeah, 100%.
And you had mentioned before that it has become this toxic relationship. On one hand, you love gymnastics and you had been doing it since you were 7. You have put in so much discipline and effort, and going up to your dad, you had told him that you wanted to accomplish this feat that only a certain type of gymnast can do by sacrificing all this much, and now it's influenced other facets in your life, and it's become you.
Yeah, so 100%.
Yeah, do you miss the scene at all?
It's really weird. I have so many people that always tell me that, like family always be like, do you miss gymnastics? And my answer is always, I miss gymnastics as a sport, but I don't miss everything that came with it. And I don't miss like the coaches and the toxicity of it. Like I will say gymnastics is one of the most incredible sports ever. Like doing it, you feel amazing. Like just, it's such like, I don't know how to explain it. My mom told me, and I don't mean to like, hate on soccer, for example, but my mom was like, everyone can kick a ball around. Everyone can like, you know, have fun and kick a ball around.
Everybody can run.
Yeah, everyone can run.
Kick.
Yeah, but not everyone can like flip and do the things that we've learned, or even have the body awareness that like gymnasts have of just knowing like you're on a beam this small, like you're on a beam that's 4 inches wide. Like you don't, like your body just somehow has so much body awareness to know where you are in the air to land on something that's literally the size of your iPhone, or even smaller now based off of how iPhones are.
Yeah, how many people can do a backflip?
Yeah.
They 1 out of 1,000, not even. I only know 2 people that can do backflips, and that's you as one of them.
Yeah, so in that aspect, like I miss it so much because it is such an amazing sport, and that's why I hate talking about it sometimes, because the sport itself is just like so incredible. And whenever I see anyone that does anything like that, I'm like, props to you. And I miss it so much because I miss the feeling of gymnastics, where it's like I would love to get back into it, or even just do like some sort of calisthenics and or whatnot when I'm done my traveling. That's like definitely top of my list of things I want to get back into. But I don't miss the coaching and the training for gymnastics, because it definitely created a lot of issues mentally for me, and it created a lot of things that I had to overcome and heal from. So I don't miss that, but I miss the sport as a whole, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, you were in the sport with the people that are also interested in the sport. So you guys bonded on
Yes.
that. And you have made some lifelong friends in there. And also the performances. You get to
Yes.
experience all those days, those weeks, months of hard work up until the competition, and you win that medal after working so hard. But there's the sacrifices that you do make. And along the way, there were some coaches and just the sacrifices they had to make. You felt that you missed out on certain aspects.
Yeah, 100%. I remember like once I got out of gymnastics, I just went to like a therapist to just talk about a couple things. And that's what she said, was she was like, you need to realize that you didn't have a teenage phase. Like you didn't go through the normal teenage stuff. You missed out on so much. So it's okay that you're doing it now. And that's what I always think about, is like, I got to experience so many great experiences and I traveled so much, and I'm so blessed that gymnastics did that for me. But I also feel like I feel delayed, or I did feel delayed when I was a teenager, of like, who am I? I felt like people kind of started figuring it out, or they were going to parties and they were just doing things, where I was stuck in a gym for 7 hours a day, and I just missed out on like a childhood, kind of, if that makes sense. But I still got to experience so many amazing things. So that's where my brain sometimes feels guilty of being like, no, I can't say that. I'm not allowed to say that because I got to experience this, but I missed out on this, so it's okay. But I would say like, I definitely feel like I missed out on like the average childhood and like teenage years of like playing outside in your backyard, or just like going to parties or having friends over. Like I never ever had friends over other than my best friend that was in gymnastics. And like I never went to like normal birthday parties, or went to a party. Like I never went to a party in high school because I was training. And I don't know, just like all those little things that kind of make your teenage or child years, I didn't have. So I felt like once I quit gymnastics, I definitely was trying to catch up on that. And it sometimes created a lot of other issues too. But yeah.
Yeah, that disconnection that we feel from the norm. Like this is what a childhood should be like, just playing outside. And while you had spent those times at the gym, there's kids out there just playing in the playground.
And being innocent, yeah.
But you know what? Like I'd say I had a pretty normal childhood in high school life, and granted, my home life, it wasn't the healthiest, and I still went through a lot of turmoil and a lot of down points and insecurity. It's not all that.
It's not all that great. That's what people always tell me. They're like, "Don't worry, you didn't mouse out on too much."
Yeah, but when they say that, though, you weren't in it, so you don't really know what it's like.
Yeah,
it's like telling the high school kid that life after high school isn't easy, and when you're in high school,
that's all you see.
You don't know. You don't really know for yourself. We don't really internalize certain lessons up until we live it.
Yeah.
But like on the bright side too, this has opened your mind up to be able to not choose the scheduled, time built in, rigorous lifestyle. And now you're wanting to travel more, and you want to free yourself because you don't want to suffer that regret.
I would say it's definitely a blessing in disguise. And that's why I say sometimes I feel guilty talking about it. And it kind of goes back to like, you never know what anyone else's life is like. I could be sitting here wishing I had your life, but I don't know what goes on in your life, right? Like, except for you. And I think that's what a lot of people thought with gymnastics, is they would always say, oh, you're so lucky. You get to leave. You like never go to school. You get to leave school early to go play around in a gymnasium. And I'm like, no, like you don't understand. That's not what it's like, right?
There's some mental battles going on there. There's sacrifices that were made.
But I'm guilty for that, because I remember when I was in gymnastics, I used to always look at you, for example, and be like, you're so lucky. Like you get to stay at school all the time and you get to have friends and all of this. So it's like, it's a lose-lose. And that's why I think I definitely learned not to compare your life to someone else, because I have no clue what's going on in your life and you have no clue. And my life may seem glamorous because I'm getting to do a sport 24/7 that I love. But if you're actually in it, it doesn't feel like that. And same vice versa. And that's why I think I very much learned that everyone's living their different story, and you kind of can never judge what someone else is going through. You can still hear it, but you still never know what, like, I will never perceive the life that you get to see every day, and you'll never understand the life I get to live, right?
And what I've learned, even if you're passionate about a certain endeavor, it's still work to a point. If you drown yourself in that work, it doesn't matter how passionate you are. If you're working 40, 80 hours, it will bog you down. I think 40 is the cap off.
Yeah, I think so.
8 hours Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
And you're doing that with gymnastics and on top of school.
And just being a kid, figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah. But why didn't you stop? Why?
I think that goes back to like the toxicity of it, is like I genuinely felt like I could not leave. Like, I don't mean to put this on the coaches, but they had such a chokehold on us, like such a manipulative, like
a grip.
Yeah, of like, you do know, like, there's nothing else out there but gymnastics. Like, this is the only thing that's good for you. This is the only thing that you're really good at. And it just was like such a manipulative way of like coaching, and being so young too. Like, I didn't know who I was without gymnastics. Like, I didn't know anything except for gymnastics. So it was so hard because I would be like, I want to quit. Like, I would come home crying. I would be driving, my mom would be driving me to work, and I would be or not to work, to gymnastics, and I would be bawling, and she'd be like, if you sigh one more time, we're turning around. And I'd be like, and like, I would just purposely do it. Like, I didn't want to go there, but my mind was like, I didn't know what else was out there for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was
like a love-hate.
psyop that these coaches had. They had a grip on you to want to stay in the industry. And while it may have felt like free will to you, they instilled a lot of these ideals of what are you going to amount to if it's not for gymnastics, and why should you live a life like sheep and everybody else is doing the same thing? You're special. You come to practice for 6-8 hours a day, and they make you believe, because it's putting money in their pockets and it's giving them a job. Yeah. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's tough.
No, it's okay. It's also like, I think people also don't realize I saw my coaches more than I saw my mom. Like, I was literally living with my coaches. Like, my coaches felt like my parents. So whatever they said was drilled into my brain. Like, honestly, they had more say over my life than my mom did. Like, if we wanted to go on vacation, my mom, I bless my mom and I love her so much, because she was the one of the few parents that would actually stand up for the kids. Because not only did the coaches like kind of manipulate the kids, they very much so manipulated the parents as well, where like you had to ask the coaches if you could go on vacation, and they would tell you no. So then half the time the parents would be like, hey, we're not going on vacation. And it's like, no, this is your life. This is
my kid.
This is my kid. Like, and my mom, like, I love her so much for that, because she was good at standing up for me, of being like, I'm not asking, I'm telling. Or like, she has an injury, I'm telling you, we're not doing this, rather than being like, okay,
more
no,
assertive,
like, it's your choice.
Folding to the tyranny.
Yeah, exactly.
What challenges did you face in balancing your athletic career with discovering who you are as a person?
Once again, I feel like this has a lot that goes into it.
I just saw your parentheses.
That's okay. No, that's totally fine. I think this this has so many little like brackets that go into it, and most of it is the mental health aspect, I think. And it sounds weird to say like mental health helped me discover who I am, but it really did, because like I've said 1,000 times, there were so many things that went on behind the closed doors of just like the manipulation, or like we would get weighed. Sounds so dumb, but we would get weighed like every week or every month, and they would tell us, like our coaches would tell us that, oh, we're only weighing you so then we can see like, if you weigh heavier this week, then we know like something's going on. Or like if you're weighing less this week, then like maybe there's something that's going on in your body and we can be gentler with you. But in reality, it was literally just to see, have you gained weight? Have you not? And like, I remember one of my friends, she gained like 2 pounds and she came out crying, bawling because the coaches were like, what did you eat? Why did you gain 2 pounds? Or like one of my best friends, she was doing something on bars and the coach was spotting her and was like, what did you eat last night? And she was like, spaghetti. And he was like, well, that's why you're so heavy. Like, it was just like so many little things like that. And being like a 9-10-year-old growing up and discovering your body in the first place is hard, let alone having like weigh-ins every week and like coaches telling you like, no, you weigh too much. I remember I would step on the scale and my mom always told me from like a young age, oh, if you tighten up all your muscles, like you would weigh less. I don't even know if that's true, but I remember I would step onto the scale and I would be so scared every week and I would step on there and like try and squeeze as hard as I could so I could literally be 0.5 of a pound less, which is just crazy as a 9-year-old being so like cognizant of like how much you weigh. And so I think that created a lot of like, I don't know. It definitely created a lot of body like dysmorphia when I exited gym or when I ended gym. And even to this day, like I feel like I'm never perfect enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's horrible that as 9 to 10-year-olds, you guys are having to weigh yourself and then you're chastised for gaining a couple pounds
when we're already so small. Like every gymnast is already so small. And like when I say this stuff, I don't mean it in a bad way because I generally think our coaches thought they were doing the right thing. But I think they just they couldn't empathize. Like they didn't understand we are 9-10-year-olds. They're trying to figure out who we are. And like to them, I do believe that they thought they were doing the right thing.
Did they do the same thing when they were growing up?
Yeah, some of them did, but like I remember my coach saying, "Oh, I was never at the level that you are." So like I'm not too sure. Yeah,
since you guys are ultra gifted when it comes to being able to do all these flips and being able to be here, then it's a privilege. And to do what it takes, that means weighing in and making sure you're hyper aware with the each pound that is gained or lost. And when you're already so light,
I was so skinny, like
when you're training all day too, that creates body dysmorphia. I mean, for girls these days, I mean, you don't even have to be in a gym or be a gymnast to have these
issues,
unrealistic expectations to have. And then it's definitely rampant in a lot of teenage girls. I know,
especially
even with
social media,
depression and anxiety, that's been on the rise ever since 100%. The advent of the social sphere that we have and just social media and the internet and seeing all these people with their perfect glorious bodies and then looking in the mirror and going, I'm not really close to that. Why am I not close to that? I gotta try harder. And you don't know that person.
Exactly. And you need to realize, like, I think I struggle with this a lot, is the person that you're staring at on the phone, they might have the quote unquote ideal perfect body, but in their mind they don't. Like, everyone's still fighting the same battles of, like, I remember I was in high school and I was always just like obviously very lean and fit, and like I would have girls come up to me and be like, oh, you're so muscular and this, and we'd be like, oh, I wish I had your body, or just comments on my social media being like, I wish I had your body. But you need to remember, like, those perfect people online, like, they still deal with things in their mind too. Like, to them, they're not perfect enough. So don't judge yourself for not looking like them, because everyone has their mental issues or has whatever it is. And no one is, like, it sounds sad to say, but you are going to be your biggest critic and you are never going to be perfect enough for yourself, right? So you just need to learn how to, like, live with what you have and be proud of what you have, and, like, obviously work towards being healthy and better. But we need to stop comparing ourselves to social media, because no one is 100% happy with what they have, and it's just all such an act. And I hate that whole, like, here's my body and this is what I look like, so compliment me, because guaranteed they're going through something else too, or they're not happy with their body as well. So just don't compare what you look like to someone else, because everyone's going with their own battles, right?
There's always this level of discontent. I know for me, I struggle with how I am, you know, mentally and physically. And there's days where I'm just super confident and I go to the gym and I feel great about myself. But then there's those days where I just feel horrendous
Mhm.
and I feel atrocious. And then there's social media doesn't do well because when you see this person that is in the 1% of the genetic,
Mhm.
they were just blessed with a good work ethic,
Mhm.
and maybe the photos or videos were modified too. It kind of it really alters your perception of how good you are, how,
Mhm.
and this is really common in the fitness industry
Yes, 100%.
where you got these people that are great looking people aesthetically, just they are in the phase of their lives or they have the bodies that the average person would kill for,
Mhm.
but then looking in the mirror, that's not really.
Like they're still not happy.
Yeah,
Like they probably still have something else that's going
Yeah.
on, and that's why you just can't compare yourself
and
to
then
them.
having these young girls and
Mhm.
all you guys when you were all 9 and 10
Mhm.
and being having to step on the scale, it's not healthy at all.
Yeah, no, and it was such like, I think you said it a while ago, but like one of the manipulative tactics that they would use is like, I remember my one coach who was from Romania, and like I obviously understand like things are different there as well.
Yeah.
But like they would be like, because we were training, it's so hard because I'm so like fuzzy with some things, but like we were training 6 or 5 days a week with morning training and everything. And he would be like, oh, well, you should be training 7 days a week. Like if you want it this bad, you should be training it. And it was such like a mind boggle in your head of being like, I want to make it to the Olympics or I want to have a scholarship. So yeah, maybe I should just train 7 days a week. But it's also like, no, like you need to rest. You're literally 9 years old. You shouldn't be doing that. And just because a coach is telling you you're not going to make it without training 7 days a week is so false, because like you shouldn't be. Like you need to rest your body. Like this isn't how things should go. You need to rest. And just because like an authority figure is telling you that you're not going to make it without doing this or that is just like another way that it would always get into your head sometimes. But yeah.
And you mentioned the ADHD. Yeah, how does this play into gymnastics?
I don't know why I love talking about ADHD. It's just something that's so fascinating to me, especially me, because I have so many things that I do or I felt like I would do when I was younger and be like, why don't I fit in? But now I'm like, I get it. And I literally think my mom tells me now ADHD is your superpower. And I so much believe that. But when I was younger, I always had like signs of ADHD, but my mom, like she knew, like my mom comes from my psychology background and she knew, but she was just like, she's in gymnastics. She's fine. Like, let's just let her. She didn't want to, like, my mom was not the person to be like, medication, so you go. Like, she was just like, until it comes an issue, we will deal with it then. But once I quit gymnastics, I was just having such a hard time. Like, I was having behavioral issues. I developed so much social anxiety. I was struggling in school. I just couldn't make friends. I just felt like I had so much depression and anger in me, and I didn't understand what was wrong. And so my mom finally took me to like a doctor or a psychologist. And that's when they said, oh no, she's just diagnosed with ADHD. But my mom explained it to me where when I was in gymnastics, essentially gymnastics obviously releases like serotonin, or any sports that you do kind of releases serotonin. So it was suppressing my ADHD. And that's what it was kind of making it easy for me to live when I was younger with my ADHD, is just like gymnastics would let it out. I was always running around. I was doing things. I was just like suppressing my ADHD. But then when I quit, I had no more dopamine release that created so many more behavioral issues that come with ADHD, because people always just think it's the hyperactiveness, and it's so much more than that. Like there's so many pillars to ADHD that people don't understand. And I was having a lot of the behavioral and mental issues with ADHD. And so when I got diagnosed with that, it was like healing to me in the sense of like, this is why I am. And then it gave me a reason of like, okay, I am having troubles with relationships. How can I work through my ADHD so I can be better in a relationship, or so then I can like understand my emotions so I can be a better person. Like it gave me a reason to like why I was feeling. And now I feel like I am like my most successful version of myself, because if something doesn't feel right in my brain, or I'm doing a negative behavior, like especially my boyfriend has become so amazing where he's like, okay, take a second, realize why you're doing it. And it always like has a link, like what you do always has a link to something else. And it's created like I don't know, I've just am so in tune with my emotions now because I understand where it's coming from and stemming from. And I can now be like, I need to stop doing this because this is creating this. Or I need to change the way I think because my ADHD is making me do this. Like, it's just become such like a release, or like I can breathe now being like, okay, this is why, and this is how I can work through it. And it's just like, I don't know, it felt very nice just finally like having a diagnosis for why I was and why I was going through some things that I was going through. And it's just has helped so much just knowing that there's something behind it.
And you found this out after you had quit gymnastics?
Yeah, after I quit gymnastics, I was...
And then this, I guess, when you don't have that outlet anymore, and you had said that the release of these feel-good chemicals of serotonin.
Yeah, my mom said, my mom is so good with it. I think it's dopamine, yeah.
Yeah, dopamine is released when you're engaging in an activity that you're passionate about, and when this was stripped away from you. And what finally made you decide, okay, I quit? Since 13, 14 years you've been doing it?
Yeah, you probably remember when I had that big neck injury. Like when I literally came to school with a whole neck brace, I had a huge big neck injury. And after that is when the one coach that I absolutely adored, like she was so amazing, she left. And so then after that, obviously I was dealing with an injury and just new coaches that I didn't necessarily click with and just other things. I pursued it for like 2 years after my neck injury, but it was just never the same. Like I had so many mental blocks and fears just overcoming such a big injury. I just developed so many fears. And then I was kind of going through like that hard preteen, like 14-year-old, just developing who I am. And I was going through just so many emotions of like just depression and anxiety and so many things. And being in the gym was not helping. And being around the coaches that I literally did not feel comfortable with was not helping. Yeah. And I think it finally clicked in my mind. And even my mom told me, she was like, you're done after this year. Like who I started as, like the individual I started as when I very first started gymnastics and who I ended gymnastics with was two completely different people. Yeah. Like if my mom looked at me from the start to the end, she wouldn't have even known who I was at the end of gymnastics. I was so broken that my mom finally was like, we're pulling the plug. Like you are done. And I think it just finally clicked in my mind where I was like, if I don't leave this now, I generally do not think I would be here.
Well, you have learned so much though. And while it's unfortunate that the sport has left you with mental scars, still you have developed discipline, resilience, 100%. And you had a release of just all of your frustrations were given out in the physical modality. And yeah, but it wasn't all bad though.
No, okay? There's so many great memories with it.
Let's discuss some of the good.
Yeah, no, 100%.
What was the biggest achievement you've made?
I think there's so many, like, I know we were talking about so many bads, but there are so many amazing things that came with gymnastics.
I've known you since grade 7, and so I've seen all your posts, and I've seen the hard work and tremendous amount of effort that you've put in. And yeah, it's intense. You're intense.
Yeah, I would say like I forever love the people that I gymnastics with. Like my best friend will always be my best friend. We went through the same stuff together and we experienced so many happiness together too. Like I will forever be grateful for my best friend that I met. And even the people that like I honestly don't talk to many people in gymnastics anymore, but I will always be forever grateful for those people because they have no clue how much they helped me during those times. And like they will always be such a core memory in my brain. And like it's so weird to also say, like, I'm thankful for my coaches, but, like, I am. Even though they did so many things that they shouldn't have done, I will always remember them. And they still gave me so much. Like, they gave me so many opportunities. I got to travel to, like, England. Like, we got to travel so much with gymnastics. And, like, my coaches taught me a lot. Like, they really shaped my determination and resiliency and hardworking mindset. So they did teach me a lot. And, like, I will never forget the feeling of just competing. Like so many girls hated competing, which is mind-boggling to me because I'm like, you hate training. You literally train to compete and you hate competing. But like, I'm so grateful that I loved competing because there's so many great memories with just like competitions and just like achieving, like standing up on the podium, especially at like nationals, is insane because it literally feels like the Olympics, like where you do like walkout ceremonies, and those were always so amazing. Just like walking out to a big crowd and people calling your name and just like like it's just like I'll never forget those. And like how it works with gymnastics is like the floor where like everything would be on podiums, so you're literally like the floor would be built up and then it would be like the apparatus on top of a built up floor, so like people are literally like, you're on a stage, like people are staring at you, and like it's such an unreal feeling of like just hearing cheers and like receiving medals or hearing your name, or even just like, I don't know why this one sticks in my brain of just like hearing "O Canada" being sung on like a stage where they're literally singing it and blessing, like
patriotic. It connects everyone.
Exactly. So it's like when I think back to like those memories, it's like I would never give up gymnastics for the world. Like I would never change anything, because I got to experience so much at such a young age, and I got to travel so many places at such a young age that it's like there is so much good, and I met so many good people. And like the other thing about gymnastics is you don't just like train with your club. Like we would go to Calgary. We would like in England, we went to training camps. We went to a training camp. I didn't go to this one, but in China, we would go to training camps. So you meet people that are like you from around the whole world, and you can develop like obviously good connections. Like I still, if I wanted to talk to people from Calgary or wherever it is, like I still have those connections. And it's just crazy to see all the people we met around the world that were like-minded like you. So I would say that's another big positive.
Yeah, there's all these connections that you make, and you work tremendously hard for that competition. And then when it finally comes together, there's people cheering your name.
Yeah.
And then when you practice that routine, and then when it's finally presented on the stage and everyone's clapping, there's so much hype, and you're reveling in the glory of that performance, and it seems so surreal. It
literally feels like you're the only person that exists. Like I remember after nationals, I did like a news thing for Global News. Like they interviewed me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I remember standing there and I was just so like, obviously as a young kid, you're not as grateful, but now I'm like, that's so cool. Like I'm so grateful for those experiences. Or like after that competition, in the mail, you get sent sometimes this like scouts. So then I got scouted for Ohio State. And I remember just that feeling of like opening up the mail to like see a scholarship, like scoutment. It just makes you feel like, oh, I'm worth, like, I did this. Like, no one else did this for me but me. Like, I put in the work and I got this achievement, if that makes sense. So it feels so, like, unreal. There's so many, like, little moments like that I'll just
like
never forget. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, like, it's even more surreal just knowing that you put in the work to get that, right? Yeah. So there's just so many little moments like that I'll just never forget. I don't know.
So what was a really challenging routine that you tried and then failed, then tried and failed, and eventually after months you nailed it down? Is there a name?
Yeah, I have like this one specific floor routine. So if you don't know, I had a big neck injury and I was put in a neck brace and everything, and that was from a skill on floor. So like it's so hard to explain gymnastics terminology, but like the easiest way, like a double back, people probably have heard that 1,000 times, where it's like you do two, like you obviously run into and you do like a round off and a back handspring, but after that is like what is counted for. So a double back is essentially doing like 2 flips in one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so that's what I was doing, and I've done it 1,000 times, and it was literally just a fluke accident that when I did that, I opened up, like I don't know, my body was confused, and I opened up way too early, and I literally just came straight down on my neck. But after, but after that, like, obviously I was out of gymnastics for, I couldn't even tell you how many months, a couple months. And like after that, obviously I had such a mental barrier. Like I could not do that skill forever because it was just such a mental, like almost PTSD. Yeah, like I would see.
What if it happens again?
Exactly. But I remember working on it for so long, and like I finally obviously got it back. But every time I stepped on the floor, and like I don't think my mom or my coaches understood how much this affected my brain, but like every time I stepped on the floor, I would feel petrified. Like I would be nervous, and there'd be some days where I would be tell my mom I'm way too sick and I couldn't go to gymnastics.
For this routine or just in general?
For the routine, like for floor, because like
it's
gymnastics.
Floor?
Yeah, gymnastics has 4 events. So you have vault, bars, beam, floor. So this one was for floor.
Sure.
And anytime I would step on the floor, like I would just be terrified. But I didn't show it. Like I was someone that was just very much like internal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I finally got that skill back. And I remember competing it for tryouts to, I think it was nationals. And that would just be a floor routine I'll always remember, because I remember landing my double back and being like, I'm done. Like I did it. Like this is crazy that I had a mental block on this forever. And I was still terrified of it when I was doing it. But like,
yeah,
I did it, if that makes sense.
You managed to get through it.
Yeah, and that'll be a routine I remember forever, because that was like, I placed first place all around, and it was on the event that I was terrified of. And like, I don't know, it was just such a good feeling. So I think that routine is one that I'll just remember, because there was so much emotion behind it, if that makes sense. There's so much fear.
I mean, you almost paralyze the entire body doing it and going back into it after fully healed. There's all these flashbacks and you're traumatized to do it. And eventually you come back to it and you figure out that, oh, it's not the end of the world. I can do this. I can bounce back from this catastrophic event. So you said there's 4 phases? There's 4
events. So it's kind of hard, because gymnastics is kind of like 4 sports in one almost. Because you would have floor, which is like,
that's just like on the ground with there's no bars or anything.
Yeah, it's just on the ground. So it's like when you kind of see like they'll like dance and tumble. So it's kind of like tumbling is floor. And then beam is like that one that's really, really skinny.
Beam?
Yeah, beam.
So floor, beam.
Beam's like that really, really skinny one that's high off of the ground.
Okay.
And then bars is like the typical one that I think people think of gymnastics, which is like the ones that you would hang on, kind of like parkour. If you've seen parkour, they like hang on those bars and you would do like swings around the bars. And then vault is just the most stupid apparatus ever. I would always explain it as you're literally running full speed at a stationary object, and you just like sprint, and then you like there's like that springboard, and then you like jump on the springboard kind of, and then flip
do
over the vault.
A bunch of flips and then land.
Yeah.
I know. I've actually, that just came up on my YouTube shorts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really cool.
It is cool. It's just like, I don't know why vault to me was just such a like silly apparatus, where it's literally 10 seconds, if that, like not even 10 seconds, like 5 seconds of your time, and you're literally sprinting as fast as you can towards a stationary object and just flipping over it. Like it's just such a weird addition to gymnastics. But
that's spectacular.
Yeah.
How do you think athletic discipline contributes to developing a sense of self and confidence to other areas of life?
I think you learn a lot about yourself when you're put in situations that you need to like mentally and physically push through, and like that builds your discipline. Being in front of a situation that you're like, damn, I don't want to do this, or this is scary, or a million people watching me, it creates that discipline to just be like, I don't have a choice. Like, I'm just gonna do it. Yeah, I go, or I'm not doing it, and I make a fool of myself. So I think it definitely like created a lot of sense of self, being like, there's a lot of things in life that you don't have a choice to do. Like, obviously, yeah, you can choose to go to work, but you just have to. And I think it created that discipline in my mind of being like, I don't have a choice to do this, but I'm going to make the best out of it. Like, I'm literally just going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to make the best out of it. And it creates a sense of like self of like, whatever you're doing, you can put your own personality into it. Even if it's something that you don't enjoy doing, like let's say you do not want to go to work and you're just dreading it, and everyone at work is grumpy, you have the opportunity to change other people's like personality, not personality, but change other people's like mood. Like, if you don't want to do something and everyone's grumpy, go up, wake up, and just be like, no, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to create a great environment. I'm going to create like environment that everyone is going to be happy in. Go to work, show a smile, talk to people, just be bubbly, be happy, and like create an environment that everyone wants to be in, rather than just sitting there and being like, damn, this sucks.
Yeah.
Right?
There's that friction that we feel when we don't want to undergo a certain task, because it's daunting, because there's that risk of failure, of that rejection, of when you're performing in front of thousands of people, or if you're broadcasted live, as think you were.
Lots of times you're live.
Many are watching, a great deal of people, more than you can even comprehend,
Mm-hmm.
and you can back down. I don't have to do this. No one is forcing me.
Yeah.
Or you can go, I've spent so much
Mm-hmm.
tears, blood, sweat into this craft. I
Mm-hmm.
gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah, you just gotta do it.
I need
Figure it
to
out.
get after it. And then you do it, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that constant battle every day of just submerging yourself
Yes.
in this mental friction of, I don't want to do this,
Mm-hmm.
like working out, like when you want to read that book or
Mm-hmm.
you want to learn that skill, but still doing it anyways.
Yes.
And then you had mentioned that, okay, you don't want to go to work because there are people that have a miserable aura that
Mm-hmm.
is being exerted, and is bringing me down. I don't want to be around that. Go for it. Yes, sure, maybe that's true, but you can create your own
Yeah.
aura
100%.
and have those people be uplifted
Mm-hmm.
instead of being a victim to your own mind and the people that weigh you down. You're the one that goes after the things that you want, and if you want to be miserable, sure, maybe that's something that you sharpen. But if you want to live a life filled with adventure,
Mm-hmm.
of initiative and joy, then you have to put in some effort.
100%. I remember, like, it's such just a cheesy saying, but like my mom was like, you create your happiness. Like, if you want to be miserable, sure, be miserable, but there's no situation that you can walk into that you can't create the outcome for, if that makes sense. And I think gymnastics taught me a lot of that, of like, yeah, sure, I could have taken the negative, and yeah, maybe my mind is still healing from some things, but like, instead of being like, this happened and this happened and this happened, I can create a positive out of it. I could be someone that, like, I struggled with eating, like, an eating disorder for a while after gymnastics, but now I don't focus on that. I'm not like, oh, I'm like, I had this eating disorder. Now, if anything, like, it creates so much more. Like, if you focus on the positive things, you can create so much with your life. Because now, like, with my business, that's one of the things that I want to help people with the most is eating disorders. And rather than being like, oh, this was a negative in my life, let's create something positive with it and help other people. Like, you literally can create anything you want with just the way of your thinking, if that makes sense.
Carl Jung has this quote of, I am not what happened to me, I am what I become.
Yeah.
These things happen to us. And while it's unfortunate that life's just designed to have mental afflictions existing, hardship and trauma, and there are these behaviors that are created as a result of these mental afflictions and pain and suffering that we all undergo, we can use that as fuel to help others, like
100%.
the business that you have started.
100%.
What motivated you to start your own fitness training business, and how has it contributed to your financial independence?
Yeah, I generally think I will thank gymnastics so much in the sense of starting this business, or in the sense of how my brain works for my careers, because, like, obviously it taught me how to be determined and figure things out and just be resilient, but being in gymnastics, like, I just felt like I was on such a strict routine. Like, I had to do this at this time, this at this time. I was living for other people. I was pleasing my coaches. I was trying to please my parents. Like, I was always just, like, in a constant state of, like, people pleasing, if that makes sense, that it almost created something in me when I quit, that I was like, I want to take control of my life. Like, I don't want to be living for anyone else anymore. Like, I want to do what's me. And it also opened my eyes up to, like, empathy towards people. Like, just seeing how these coaches would treat kids, I was like, I don't know how someone cannot understand that we have a mental health that needs to be, like, saved. Like, these kids are so young that we need to not protect, because, like, obviously we're in such a sensitive society nowadays, but just, like, what we say to people can affect them, and not everyone is going to be as strong as you are or as resilient as you are. And you need to understand that like what you say to people and your actions towards people can affect them. And I think that made me want to start this business because I learned so much about just the psychology of like your brain and how you work and how people like kind of beating you down can really affect you. And then I also just learned so much about human anatomy being in gymnastics. We always were so in tune with our bodies that I figured out that obviously fitness was going to be such a big thing for me. Like the minute I quit gymnastics, I was like in the gym. Like that was my new thing, and that was my new therapy. And so being in the gym 24/7, I was like, I can create a career that's revolving around what I love, and that was personal training. And I just love personal training for the fact that there's such like, obviously personal training is focused on the outer shell of like people who come up to you and be like, I want to lose 20 pounds and I want to look good and shredded. And so it's such around an outer shell, but there's so much inner stuff to work through and just like adapt that people don't understand with personal training. And that's what I love so much about it is when I have a client, they come and tell me their story. And lots of times the clients that I would deal with have dealt with eating disorders or body dysmorphia, and just helping them through that mental phase so then they can adapt to their physical shell is just so amazing to me. And that's what I love, is just understanding that these people are more than just like an outer shell, and that you as yourself is more than an outer shell. Like you are not based off of what you look like, and that I can help someone deeper down with like an eating disorder is just so amazing to me. And that I can build a career that's like freedom. Like I just loved that freedom aspect. So then I could do whatever I want and I can live the life that I want rather than being stuck in like a 9-to-5, having to drive to work, living on someone else's time. Was just so amazing that I got both best of both worlds, that I can create a career that's freedom to myself, but also healing to other people.
Yeah. We are in a mental health crisis.
100%.
And there are many young teens subjected to turmoil in their own heads, and we are our own biggest enemies. I know suicide and depression and anxiety, it seems to be rampant. I don't know if just people are a lot more talkative when it comes to that. I don't know if that's always been the case, but I just see you get to realize with, as you said, being able to empathize with people, that there are these afflictions that dawn us, and they really affect not only that person but everybody else around them.
Yes.
And it spreads. And you wanting to start this business from a person that has gone through the rigorous training, and so you know kind of how the body works and how to train properly. And you don't want to be constantly working for someone, and you want control of your own time, and you want to be able to manage your own freedom. As to back then, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, it was never the case.
Yeah, because you were always subject to what the coaches wanted you to do. And now you are able to, since starting this business, you're able to connect with people as well.
Yes, 100%.
And so it's all, you're very passionate about it, and you can help people with their mental health conditions. And because you have been through it yourself, when it comes to the eating disorder, I know that's very common with women now.
Yes.
Hey?
Yeah, it's so sad, and it's just like, it's crazy to see how at such a young age now too.
Was it just uncontrolled for you? I mean, eating disorders, we don't want it, but was it, I know there's an overeating, which is a lack of control, and then there's undereating, where it's to establish control. And I actually just had a girl come on the podcast to talk about that.
Yeah, I think I watched the video. I watched that one.
And she, it's horrific that some people have to experience that. Yeah. What was it like for you?
You know, it was really weird because when you're in it, you don't realize what you're doing, if that makes sense. Like, I quit gymnastics, and obviously being in gymnastics did not help. And that's where it stemmed from, because I quit and I was so petrified. Like, I felt like I was known for my body a lot. Like, even just in high school, like, I feel like guys would just objectify me as my body, if that makes sense. And even outside of high school, like, my whole life, I feel like I've been known as my body. And in gymnastics, like, that's what you're known for too. You're literally being judged based off of what your body looks like, right? And so quitting, I had such a fear of just...
Wait, in gymnastics, they also judge your body? I thought they judged the performance.
They judge the performance, but if you think of it, like, gymnastics is based off of a straight line. So if you are doing something in gymnastics, you need to be in a straight line. And so your body's getting stared at 24/7. If your butt is out of the straight line, then you get deductions. Or if you have a tummy, like, the amount of times, like, in gymnastics, they'd be like, suck in your tummy, because if your tummy is sticking out, you're not in a straight line anymore. So, like, you would always be told, suck your gut in, you're not looking skinny enough, like, suck your tummy in, why are you, like, slouching like that? So, like, you always just judged,
the
right?
Common narrative.
Yeah. So you're just judged based off of your body. So just always having that in my mind, like, when I quit, I just had such a fear of, like...
Yeah, since you already lost your identity of being a gymnast, now all you have is having this fit body.
Yeah, and that's what I felt like. I felt like, okay, I don't have my gymnastics anymore, but I have the fit body. And I remember in high school, and you maybe not, because we weren't really associated in high school. Like, we talked, but I remember in high school, the minute I quit gymnastics, I was just trying to get male validation. And if you see, I hate it so much. If I look at my, like, photos I used to take, like, was just trying to get male validation. Like, I would just post for my body and just show off my body. And I hate that I did that, but that's just how I felt. Like, it's just how I felt like I was seen, because I didn't have gymnastics anymore. So it was just my body. And, like, when I was quit gymnastics, it was kind of at the time where, like, obviously people don't really start working out until later in life, like when they're in their 20s. So I was just known for being, I think, the one that was just, like, fit or muscular. So I felt like that was the only thing now that was attached to me. So I had to keep that. And for me, the only way to keep that was controlling my life. And that was with food. Like, I felt like during that time, I was so out of control. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was going through so much mentally, but the only thing I could control was the food.
So was this resulting in lack of food?
Yeah. I wasn't binge eating. I was so petrified to eat because I was so petrified of gaining weight. But I had no clue I was doing it. Like, if you sat me down then, and I'll be like, no, I'm eating enough. Like, I'm fine. Like, I wouldn't.
You're dissociated.
Yeah.
You didn't feel connected.
Yeah. Like, I knew I was doing it. Like, I knew I wasn't eating enough, but in my mind, I was like, well, I'm eating enough for me. Like, I'm fine. Like, don't tell me I'm not fine. Like, I'm fine.
I'm not burning that much calories, because I used to train 5 hours.
Exactly. And that's what my mind was. Like, I was probably burning thousands of calories a day where I quit, and now I'm just going to the gym. So I should only eat 200 calories a day because I'm not burning that many. And I believed it. Like, and that's what's so scary about, like, eating disorders is you believe, like, your mind is telling you that you're doing the right thing. And it's like, you don't see what other people see. Like, if my ribs were showing, to me, I'd be like, oh no, that's good. Like, that's what I'm working towards. But people would be like, no, that's unhealthy. And, like, it's so scary because these females, or males too, because there's so many males with it as well, don't see how they're hurting themselves, and don't see, like, the greater life that you can create for yourself just by fueling your body. And that's why I love working with people that struggle with eating disorders, because you have so much more potential than what your body looks like. And, like, just by fueling your body, you can create so much more with yourself, if that makes sense. And it's just so sad to see these individuals think that they are only worth what their body is worth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, anorexia is the deadliest mental health disorder. Because a lot of people seem to think that, eating disorder, that's another issue. But it's a mental health disorder.
100% is.
It's either that lack of control you feel that results in anorexia, or lack of control which results in the binge eating and overeating, and then the need to establish for control, which is anorexia.
Yeah,
I got it other way around, but it's just, that's tough. And this business that you have created, it helps you connect more, since you have had to go through that. now you're able to understand people when they do open up about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How did you go about curing this disorder?
Like for myself?
Yeah.
I think, you know that like saying of like people will hit rock bottom and they'll either change their life around or they kind of die from it. I think that's where I was. I was at the point of rock bottom where I was doing so many harmful things to myself. And I think I just had that realization. Like I saw how it destroyed my mom. Like my mom was the only person that was really in the house at that time. And I saw how my mental health issues was just slowly destroying her too. And I was like, this doesn't just affect me. And I kind of just had that realization of I can use this as my turning point and build myself up, or I continue to go down this path and probably not be here to this day. And so I think I was mentally, like I've always been very mentally intelligent. And I think I was mentally strong enough at that point to just be like, I need to change something. And I finally realized that, like I did so much research on it, and I finally realized that obviously anorexia is an eating disorder. But if you think of it, if you're not feeling yourself, you're not giving your brain enough energy. So that's going to create more mental disorders. You're lacking so many nutrients that your body, you're literally creating the mental illness in yourself. And that's what I realized is by starving myself, I'm creating more issues than I am solving them, because I thought I was solving issues by not eating, but I was creating more. So I think I just realized that I need to change something or else I'm not going to be here to have my wedding day and see my kids grow up. And I remember saying this quote to, I can't remember someone, but I was never wanting to die. I was just wanting to live so badly, if that makes sense, in the sense of like, I loved life so much that I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And that's what created my depression. But like, I never actually wanted to die. I was just so like, I wanted to live so badly, but I didn't know how.
There's this quote that comes to mind of, I forget how it goes exactly, but there are 2 points in life, or 2 lives. The second one begins when you realize you only have one.
Exactly. No, and I think that's where it clicked in me.
Yeah, and the pain that you saw in your mom's eyes and how you made her feel made you look at yourself and made you realize that, this can't keep going. If this keeps going, then it's gonna shorten my life drastically and cause havoc in the people's lives that I love. Yeah.
Like you affect so many people, and like I think obviously when you are going through depression or eating disorders or suicidal thoughts, you don't mean to, but you're very selfish. Like you don't think about anyone else, right?
Yeah.
It's all about you. You need, I hate using the word of attention, but like you need that gratification. Like it's all about yourself that you don't realize who you're hurting. And it's so sad looking back because I see how much I hurt my mom. And I remember like one of the things she told me was like, I was running away and I was doing so many things. And she finally said like, do you not think I don't want to run away from your issues as well? And it kind of made me realize like, oh, I'm creating stuff for other people. It's not just about myself.
I got to think about those that I love and how it's making them feel.
Yeah, like I couldn't hold relationships. I was like, every relationship I would get into, the guy would be like, I'm leaving you because your mental health is just like, and I would blame them. I'd be like, how dare you leave me for this? Like I was so selfish and I hate it, but I would be so like, I would blame them, and that's so like ignorant of me. Like I would always be like, they don't even love me enough to stay with me. But I need to realize like I was hurting them. Like this isn't their battle. Like this is my battle that I need to face. And I think when I had that realization, it definitely churned for me. And I just realized I had so much more for myself, and I was shrinking myself down to be something that I really wasn't. I was doing it because I wanted to control something. So
kudos to you for recognizing that and making a change.
Thank you.
So what are some of the biggest financial benefits and challenges you've encountered since launching Ryot Strength? Did I pronounce that correctly?
It's like Ryot.
Ryot.
Yes, then freaking like Ryot over. Yeah. Anyways.
Ryot Strength.
Yes, Ryot. Honestly, the biggest financial benefit, I would say, technically this is not financial, but I say my biggest financial benefit is freedom. Like, I'm trying to build a career that I get to do it wherever I want, whenever I want. And to me, freedom, where time is worth more than anything, like time is more than money. So I'd say just the financial like freedom of it is so awesome, where it's like I'm about to go on a world trip and I can make money from wherever I want, which is just like very mind-boggling to me, and I'm very grateful that I get to do that. I think just the other thing is just also, this isn't necessarily like financial, but I also get to create an environment I want to be in, and I can create an environment that other people want to be in, which is very important to me as well. It's just creating a business that, like, my employees, obviously we just have one business partner right now, but like eventually one day when my employees are excited to go into, because I feel like work is just something that's so hated, and I want to create a space that is so just free, like, for everyone. Like, yeah, obviously I'm the owner, so I get to pick and choose what I work and stuff like that, but I want an environment that the people that are working in are also just feeling that freedom from, right? And then another thing I like about personal training is I get to choose how much money I make. Like, not necessarily, like, obviously I need clients to pay me, but like, I get to set my prices, which is the hardest thing for me because I'm so like empathetic, and this is why I need my boyfriend to be my business partner, because he's like, no, you're charging enough, and I'm like, no, this is way too much. Like, I want to help everyone to the point where it's just like, I want my prices to be $10, if that makes sense. But it gives you a lot of financial freedom in the sense of you get to pick and choose what you're charging. And the other thing in my mind is I get to work as hard as I want. Like, if I want to make $1 million, sure, that's on me to make $1 million. If I am lazy, then I'm not going to make any money. So it's just nice having that financial freedom of knowing, like, I'm in control of how much money I make and how hard I work for this business, because I hate working the typical 9 to 5 and feeling like you're putting everything of you into this job and you're not going to make more or less, if that makes sense. Like, why are you giving your time to someone else to make money, if that makes sense? So like, this job has really allowed me to just understand how hard work can pay off, because I get to determine how much money I make in a month. If I want to make more, I'm going to work harder to make more. If I want to make $0 an hour, then that's awesome. I can be lazy and make $0 an hour. So I think that's just like a very big benefit to just having this business. But also, there's the downfall of finding clientele, and that is so hard in the sense of, like, at least for me, because I think I'm picky, where it's like I want to really show like who I am to my clients, because I feel like personal training, like especially nowadays with social media, I hate, like, I'm sorry, and hate's a strong word, but I hate these like fitness influencers, and I say that as like I'm trying to be one, but like I'm literally trying so hard to be a fitness influencer, but like, yeah, it's just, I don't like how they all just promote the same thing, and it just feels like they're all trying to just make as much money as possible, and they're just trying to help, like I said, the outer shell of people. And so that's what's hard, because when it comes to my clientele, like, I really want people that are dedicated, obviously, because you can achieve so much when you are dedicated to yourself. And just seeing when someone works hard for themselves is just such a nice, rewarding feeling. And like, I am so proud of them. And that's why I think it's hard with clientele sometimes, because I try to find people that are very dedicated and that have deeper issues, because that's just what I'm good at. Like, I'm just good at helping the people with deeper issues, so then they can obviously succeed their outside shell. So I will say, obviously, the one downfall of personal training is just you have to find your clientele. You're not going to work knowing there's a stable income. Like, I have to find people, and it's also so hard because it's so competitive right now, where I feel like everyone is being a personal trainer. Like, people don't have their schooling for it or their credentials, and you don't have to call yourself a personal trainer, which is so frustrating, because like, I went to NATE to get my diploma for personal training, but it could be like a random Joe off the street that's like, I'm going to call myself a personal trainer, and they're allowed to. So it's so hard because there's so much like miscommunication that's going on right now. And then people will be like, oh, he looks good, I'm just going to sign up with him. But they don't know that they don't actually have like the knowledge. Like, maybe they do, because there's so many knowledgeable people. Like you, for example, you are into fitness, and I know you're probably very knowledgeable with fitness, but it's just sometimes frustrating as like a personal trainer that random people can just be helping other people. And it's like, no, you should get your schooling. Like, if you're going to help people, you should not even get your schooling, but just really know what you're talking about, because you are affecting these people's lives. So, yeah, I think the other thing is just like,
yeah, you want to target people internally too. You don't want to just change their external side.
Yeah.
You also want them to have a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning and be able to be comfortable in their own skin. And while it's great that you are helping a person be in shape, it's about keeping that shape, and to be able to keep that shape is to change internally the mental processes when it comes to their body image. Because we've all been there when it comes to working out, and you've been in gymnastics, is you get in such top condition that the norm isn't what you compare yourself to, and it's above and beyond, and then it becomes unrealistic, and you don't find contentment.
Yeah
100%.
You just, I don't know, it's hard, because my whole thing with my personal training business is like habit forming. Like, you can't do anything unless you have habits, and like healthy habits. And that's why it's hard with personal training, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there a lot of personal trainers out there that really only focus on the outside. Like, they're like, okay, you want a 6-pack? Let's get you a 6-pack. But there's so much to it. And it's also about like making it a lifestyle. Like, when I have a client and they come to me, I'm like, my goal for you is to make this a lifestyle. To me, a good personal trainer is one that I'm going to give you everything, so eventually you can do this on your own one day. And like, it's crappy for me, because then my clients only last for a couple months, but I want to give you everything I can so that you can do this on your own, so you can make this a lifestyle change, right? It's about the healthy habits. And that's why my personal training is like, there's a dedicated section to adapting like healthy habits. And I want you to sit down and really think like, what is it about your life that you don't necessarily love right now, and how can you adapt a healthy habit to counteract it, right? Because it's all about our habits that can create a better, fulfilling life that can last a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, you want your clientele to stay with you forever.
Yes.
You want them to save money, and you want their best interest. You want what works for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also see this or I've heard this in therapy, that the goal in therapy isn't to stay there forever. It's to find the habits. So
you can do it on your own.
So then one day when a tough day comes, you can do it on your own.
Yeah, exactly.
And have the mental tools to be able to leverage the unhappy days, or when life gets tough, your body is healthy and you don't resort to unhealthy habits that could catapult you to a life of destruction and annihilation.
Yeah, no, that's 100% it. Like, as a personal trainer, you need to give them the tools so they can do this on their own, because these people aren't wanting to spend money for the rest of their life. Plus, you should be a good enough person that you are giving everything that you know to this person so that they can do it on their own at one point in time, obviously.
True. How do you manage both your role as a fitness trainer and the business side of personal training to ensure long-term financial success?
I think I kind of touched on this one a little bit of like, I think it's all about the environment that you work in. Like, to me, to have financial success, I need this to last a long time, and I need to be happy in it. If I'm not happy in it, I'm not going to build the money that I want, which is not going to give me the freedom that I want. So I think creating an environment that I'm working in that I love, like, I just want to wake up every day being like, I get to go to work, not I have to go to work. And so I think that's a big one for me, is just creating that environment so I can do this for a lifetime, so I can create as much money as I want for the rest of my life with the freedom that I have. And I think also just like having a good support system is a big thing for financial freedom as well, which people are like, how does that create financial freedom? But when I first started personal training, I don't mean to be bashing my mom right now, but I don't think she quite understands. It's a hard concept to understand that you can make money online now. Like, I think for parents, it's like, well, we didn't have that. So I think she just doesn't fully understand of like, you can make lots of money online. So, but now she has come around and she has given me the support. And it just means so much because when you have people supporting you, you get to learn off of them. Everyone has something to offer. And like my business partner right now, I started this business by myself, but my business partner now is my partner. And we've learned so much off of each other. We're completely different personalities, which is good because what I have, he doesn't, and what he has, I don't have. So like we've learned so much, and you get to bounce ideas off of people, and just having connections is so important because what you know is what I don't know, and you could offer me so much knowledge that can help me build up my business, and I can offer you so much knowledge that helps you build up your business or your whatever it is that you need. So just having those supportive people next to you is like, I think, the number one thing to building financial freedom, because like everyone has something to offer, and like you also get to help out so much people. Like for me, this business isn't supposed to be online forever. Like once I come back, I have a really big business idea for it. And my thing eventually is I want to help out the people that maybe they couldn't, like they're struggling financially, and now I can hire you on and I can give you a big corporation for you to work in that you enjoy. So it's not just giving myself financial freedom, but it's also giving other people financial freedom. Wow.
Yeah, that's a great vision. And when we're still very young, so yeah, after you come back from traveling, you'll give it your all. And are you still going to be training people while you're on your 2-year backpacking trip?
Yes, that's the plan, is obviously building up the business while I'm away, because I can do that from wherever, because it's literally just all on my laptop. So I will definitely be training people, and I'm excited to train all the Aussies and hopefully get some of different clientele from around the world, which would be cool to hear their stories and everything.
Do you give them just instructional videos of weightlifting, or do you do one-on-one interactions?
So it kind of depends. Like I have an app where everything is on. So like if you was to sign up, you can either sign up as an online client, or if you're in my area, then I offer it as like in person as well. But for all online clients, I have an app, and everything is in there where everything's tailored to you. Like it's not it's all customizable, because that's another thing I hate about personal training is it's like, oh, here's your program, and it's all the same. Like everyone is so different. Everyone has different needs. So everything's customizable. All of your programs and phases are on there because your body needs different phases. You should only be, like when someone's first starting out, they shouldn't be jumping straight to strength training. Like they need to go through the adaptations to get to strength training. So the app is very structured for everyone, and it's customized to you. And then you also get your nutrition. You also get habit tracking on there as well. You get your calories, your macros, everything like that. And then if I live close to you, I obviously love to do in person, because you learn a lot from it. Like half the time you don't realize your body has imbalances. Like even when I first started working out with my boyfriend, I was like looking at him and I was like, do you know your shoulders are off? And he was like, what do you mean? I've been weightlifting forever. Like I'm fine. I'm like, no, your shoulders are off. Like, and there's just so many little things about your body that normally you don't realize until someone else points it out. So like in-person training is so valuable, especially to like beginners at the gym, because it just gives them a lot more like in-depth and like mind-body connection, because you're there helping them through it. So I love doing in person when I've barely ever done much in person, but I do like doing it in the sense that I feel like I'm giving my clients a lot more. But it's hard because in order to do in person, you need to be where I live, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
there's always something you can improve on, hey? And having that other person looking at your form and seeing that, oh, your shoulders aren't as balanced, helps you keep improving. Yeah. And once you think everything's improved, then another thing pops up. And you gotta improve on that. And then maybe you get bored. And so novelty presents itself. And maybe trying rock climbing and trying yoga. And you had mentioned that, just hopping straight into weightlifting may not be the best course of action. And doing body weight exercises first. Maybe light walk the treadmill, because you don't want to deter your clients from coming back and actually taking this into the long term.
You first need to learn how your body works. And like I was so bad for this, where like obviously I got out of gymnastics and I went straight to working out, and like I thought I knew how my body worked, but I didn't. Like once I did school, it's crazy to just learn that this muscle does this and this muscle will attract this and all this stuff. And it's just like, I want my clients to learn the foundations, because learning the foundations and learning what muscles do what is so important. Because just like, I feel like every big bodybuilder, like you, for example, you and me probably just find like, actually, no, you're very good at, like, I hear you and you're like, I'm going to stretch and do this. But at least for me, I was so guilty of being like, I'm just jumping right into it and not actually knowing how my body works. And that's so important, especially for beginners. So then they get a good, solid foundation.
That's fair. What pivotal moments or decisions helped you realize that you wanted to create your own path rather than follow a conventional one?
I knew from a very young age that I didn't want to work the 9 to 5. And I think that came from gymnastics, or just being so structured, like I said, that I didn't want to live the ordinary life. And I never wanted to wish my life away. And I think I did that a lot when I was younger, where I was like always just wishing for my one day off. And I was just constantly wishing my life away. And I didn't want that. Like I knew like I want to be in control of my life. Like I don't want to be wishing my life away. So I think it started from a young age, and just seeing my parents, they lived a very content life. And to me, content doesn't make you happy. Like content is just like, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm just, nothing bad's happening, but I'm not happy. Like I'm not truly happy. And that's how I saw my parents. Like they were always just like very content. They gave me everything I needed and they were really good, but it's just like I could always tell they weren't happy. They weren't truly happy. And I didn't want that. Like I think I've just seen firsthand what it does, and it just doesn't create a happy, fulfilling life. So I just knew I wanted something else. And then I think being a peace officer, I've been surrounded by a lot of people that didn't get the opportunities to live the life that they really wanted, right? Like they got stuck in drugs or just a bad family life and bad home life, that they didn't get to live out their dreams that they wanted. And I just feel like I have like a destiny to just do it. Like I just see so many people that aren't, and it's really sad to me, where I'm like, you can control your life. Like go out there and take control of what it is that you want, live the life that you want to do. So I think just also seeing all of the homeless and dealing with all like the mental health issues has made me really realize that like now's the time. Why would I live my life just being content? And why would I just stay in Grand Prairie where I was living in a job that I didn't really love, just because that's what people do, rather than actually going out there and creating the life that I loved? If that made sense.
Instead of conforming to what society expects of you. Yeah. Which for some people, it may align with their goals, and they love going about the means of doing it. But for you, there's that ambient feeling of, I want to do more than this. And traveling had always been on your mind, and that's something you wanted to do. And now you're quit your job.
Yeah,
and
I quit my job as of like 3 days ago.
You see that there is a mental health issue, and there are people that were giving bad childhoods, and they aren't in the best of situations, and what they would want to do if they are in a situation of health and freedom is they'd want to travel. And I kind of resonate with that too. This is why I like to run marathons, and I like to run the ultras, is there are people out there on wheelchairs that would do anything like you to run. You are able to do it, so why wouldn't you? I'm able to do it, and it's not just in the sense where, okay, I'm gonna do it just cause. We were actually passionate about it. And then that fear of, oh, what if it doesn't work out? What if you're actually able to follow this passion rather than not having the means to go about it? Yes. You can follow it, which is a lot of people don't get that opportunity. They wish. And we wish, but we can just do it too. Well, there's just that fear, right? Fear controls people of like you said, you're a great example. Like you're so dedicated. Like every time I see you, I'm like, Evan's just killing it. Like he's doing amazing. But like you had to choose that, right? And that's what people don't realize is it's hard. Like you got 2 legs. You can go on marathons. Like not everyone has that, right? Like we should be so grateful for what we have, because you do not realize what you have until it's taken away. And it's just like,
you're so dedicated. And yeah, it's probably hard, and it was probably really hard when you first got into like marathon running. But it's like you have the opportunity to do that. So why wouldn't you?
Even with this podcast, like I've always had a fear of what are people gonna think, and what if I fail? What if that and this, and what if the world ends tomorrow? Okay, if it does, then it does. Like that's. But at the end of the day, you tried your best.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you will never be on your deathbed going, what if I had done that differently? And there's always going to be some level of regret.
Of course.
But in action, by just not doing anything that you are passionate about, that's just going to fuel more regret.
Yeah.
And there's already so much of that going on.
It's better to do it than not do it. And like one of the advices I would say is like, it's actually a lot easier than you think. Like when I brought up this idea to my parents, they were like, this is so dumb. Like I was just young and I had already like a lot that was going for me. Like I was already in my law enforcement career fairly young, which I feel like most people can't get into it that young. I already graduated high school. I graduated college. I just like had my life kind of like planned out for me. So it would be scary for most people to do this and just quit their like career, because I was basically in my career. It'd be really scary, but honestly, it was a lot easier said than done. Like it was just
to it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is it's like, it's not as hard. Like we overthink so much. Like if I sat there and thought about it, I would have talked myself out of it. Like if I sat there and was like, I'm in my career already, I'm giving up this money, I'm giving up this, I'm giving up that and that, I would have talked myself out. But you need to think of it as like, it's not as hard as it sounds.
Well, Seneca has a saying of we suffer more in imagination than in reality.
Yeah.
And we get into this discombobulation of analysis paralysis rather than just doing the thing. You make up all these things and excuses.
You make up excuses.
And it's like a higher existential level of procrastination, which is, in the back of your head that you need to do the thing, but you don't do it.
Yeah.
And actually, I wanna read you this essay about like doing the thing when it comes to productivity. I think you'll like it.
Okay. I also like the back of like the voice in the back of your head. That one's mainly right 90% of the time. Like that's the voice that's like, this is what you need to do. And the rest of it is like the fear talking.
The essay is called Things That Aren't Doing the Thing by Stranger Sloop. Preparing to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Scheduling time to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Making a to-do list for the thing isn't doing the thing. Telling people you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. That's a big one. Yeah. Messaging friends who may or may not be doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Write a banger tweet about how you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on yourself for not doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on other people who have done the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on the obstacles in the way of doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Fantasizing about all the adoration you'll receive once you do the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading about how to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading about how other people did the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading this essay isn't doing the thing. The only thing that is doing the thing is doing the thing.
That's so true. I actually really like that because you get so in your head, and those like that's what stops you from doing it, right? Is like all of those little things, and that will literally stop you from doing what you want to do.
Yeah, it's like I gotta write out the pros and cons. I gotta make sure I check with my best friend, my mom, my dad. It's like you already when people ask you if this piece of clothing is better than this, and then you chose the one that
the opposite.
The opposite of what they want, and they choose that one. Why did you ask me? Anyways, it's that type of the unnecessary step where deep inside you know yourself what to do, which step to take, whether it's starting a new job, whether it's starting that business, whether it's quitting your job because it's just there's other things that are calling for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to always say, like, you know what you want to do. You're just too afraid to do it because those thoughts wouldn't come to your head if that's not what you actually wanted to do. For majority of things. Obviously, like, some things it's like,
there are days when you're at work and I don't want to do this. I don't even with this podcast, there's days I don't want to do it. But you know that there's a difference when it's an like a deep sense of
Mhm.
longing for another purpose,
Yes.
another way out of this routine that you've built in.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also within that routine where you are passionate about it. Let's say you're in the activity that you do want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. It's usually the one that is that big step. It's gnawing at you. It's
Yes.
wanting you to just
Yeah.
bite the bullet and
Yeah.
just go for it.
Mm-hmm. Do it. Why aren't you?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And then there's kind of the levels with you've been going to the gym for what? Since you've
gosh.
since you've quit gymnastics?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
almost
there's
10
days-
years now.
How many years?
Probably almost 10 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, 7 years. Around there, I think.
Of going weightlifting.
Yeah. Because I think I quit gymnastics when I was 15, and then ever since then I've been going. Now I'm 22, so I guess 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just days where you don't want to lift.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's not that doesn't mean you shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's learning to recognize which is which.
Yeah, you need to recognize like what is it that's actually good for me, I think. And most of the time, like your body knows. Like you know what is good for you, but you're like ignoring it. Like you'll always come up with excuses, but you need to think of like my body and my mind is telling me I need to do this, so why am I not listening to it?
I even have that where I've got this big insecurity and I know it's not that big of a deal and I can get over it, but then I'll hyper fixate on it and I'll spend 10 minutes ruminating on how ugly I am and how terrible I'm gonna be for future prospects. I'm never gonna amount to anything. I'm unhealthy and I'm making up all these things when really it's a waste of time. Like I know in my head that I don't need to think this way. It seems that I'm just maybe addicted to this.
Yeah, and you are.
Thought. Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, everyone always beats themselves up, but it's just, I don't know, you need to realize that literally you're the only person thinking that. Because to the outside world, you're doing great, right?
Yeah.
Like,
nobody knows your biggest insecurities other than you. And sure, you can tell other people that, hey, I don't like this about myself. They won't actually truly know what it's like to look at yourself in the mirror or to recognize a behavior and you're obsessed about it and you have dreams about it. And
so literally everything, not everything, majority of things are in your head.
Yeah. How did you stay or navigate the uncertainty of making bold career moves while ensuring they aligned with your personal goals?
I think having an optimistic outlook. That kind of sounds naive of me to be like, oh, I just need to think it's going to work out, and it will. And like that does sound naive, but like I was in my career and I was doing law enforcement, and like to most they would be like, oh, that's great. Like that's awesome. But to me, I was like, no, it's not. And like I knew I wanted to travel, and I kind of just told myself like, clearly this isn't what I want to be doing and it's not what's making me happy. So I'm just going to be optimistic enough and be like, I'm going to take off and it's going to work out. Because really at the end of the day, nothing, like it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Like let's say I take off and I hate it. Cool. I'll come back. I'll get a new job. I can get back into law enforcement. It's going to be okay. So just kind of having like that naive, optimistic outlook can help a lot, which it sounds dumb and it sounds like, why would you just be that naive? But it's like,
it's not naive at all. It's you try a certain thing and it's a decision you can unwind.
And it's like everything is, I don't even know if this is an actual word, but everything is figure outable. Where it's like you can figure out anything. Like let's say something happens when I'm traveling, I will figure it out. Like you just need to learn yourself and learn like obviously the cultures of where you're going, but you can figure out whatever it is that you're doing. Like if you're scared to travel and you're scared to do what like your heart actually wants, just realize that you will figure it out. Like there's nothing that's going to get in your way that you can't figure out if you are determined enough to do what you're doing, right? And I think my other big thing is like, I don't know, having ADHD, like I always felt like there was a part of me that didn't belong. Like I was always like, why am I like this? Why am I so just like, why would I blurt things out? Like I just always felt like if I was like talking or hanging out with friends or going out for drinks or something like that, like I always felt like I was too much. Like I would always just be like, why are you talking too much? Like people don't want to hear this. Like just little, like bring yourself down, if that makes sense. And so I think I had the realization when I was working one day and I was like, you know what, why am I trying to fit into this society that I was born into? Like obviously I was born in Sherwood Park and this is like where I'm supposed to be. Like why am I trying to create my life here when this doesn't feel right for me? Like it doesn't feel like home. So why am I trying to create this to be home rather than finding where home is, if that makes sense? Like just having that mindset of like, if you don't feel like you fit in here, don't. Like this doesn't feel like where you belong, then don't make it where you belong. Like find where you feel comfortable, because there is a place literally for everyone. And like I think that's where like majority of my decisions have come from, where it's like I'm going to find where I belong, or I'm going to find what I need in my life. And if I don't, then I'm going to create it. And it's just like, I like having that mindset of like, this isn't where it feels like I belong, so I'm not going to force it. Like, why am I going to force being here? Because that's just going to make me miserable, and that's going to make me live a life that I don't want to live, rather than taking control and building a life where I feel like I do fit in, and building a life where I feel comfortable, so then I can raise kids where I am happy, so then I can give more to them, and then they can see that you don't need to live a life that is for everyone else, if that makes sense.
If you follow what everyone else is doing, you'll live just like everyone else.
Yes.
Most people are unhappy about their occupations.
Yes.
Stuck.
Yeah.
Feeling like they should have done this, they should have done that, they should have made this new step and followed that, and now they would never know.
Yeah, like I hate like that thing in your head that's like, oh, I should have done this, or why aren't I doing this? Like I hate that voice. And like I hate that we don't follow that. Like just as human beings, I feel like we just ignore it so much. But it's like, you need to realize like you actually get to create the life you want. Like quit your job. Who cares? It's not the end of the world. Like, okay, be smart about it.
Yeah, if you have kids relying on you, maybe you shouldn't be taking all those kids. But as for you, you know what it's like to be locked in a schedule, to not have your own free time, and to be very talented at gymnastics, but still feel unhappy inside because you're longing for something much greater. And then you don't want to repeat what's happened in the past with this job that you have acquired after years of hard work in school, and still with this business too. And you're going to be working for the rest of your life. And you can only stay so young.
Yeah. You literally just got to do what makes you happy. Like, whatever it is, stop listening to like, this sounds really dumb. Stop listening to the reason of like, because you can make reasons for why you're in the career that you don't like, but stop listening to that and actually like, especially for someone that's in their 20s, like this is your time. You need to realize if you're in your 20s, you actually get to build the life you want. You don't need to go along with the life that you were given. Like just because I'm living in Sherwood Park and that's where I grew up, I don't need to stay here. Or if your mom's a doctor and you feel like that's what you need to do, you don't. Like in your 20s, you genuinely get to create the life that you want. And I feel so grateful that I get to do that, if that makes sense. Like it's such like a, I don't know. I always talk to my boyfriend about this, where it's like, it's such an amazing feeling to think that like I get to create whatever it is that I want to do. Like for the next 30 years, I'm building my life for what I want it to be, rather than just staying where I was born into, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the epitome of liberation.
Yeah.
Where you are your own author.
Yeah,
you can
literally
write your own chapters. And instead of following a script that somebody wrote for you, you're the one that designs your own life. And to an extent, we are limited by income and the time, and we can't explore every single country. And there's just opportunities that are limited to us when it comes to maybe the commitment.
Yes.
But just trying every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do something any day that just makes you happy. Yeah.
I always ask this question of, am I running towards something or away from something?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they let fear dictate how they are shaped up in this chaotic world.
Yeah. You can always escape what it is. Like, I know escape maybe isn't the best word because it sounds like you're running away from your issues. But like, let's say you're born into a rough family. You can always build your life from that. Like, you can escape that. That's not your identity. Like, you can literally be who you want to be. If you were born into a drug addict family, don't like it's a lot easier said than done. But like, you can create the personality traits to overcome that. Like, it's not who you are just because that's what you were born into. You can escape whatever it is that you want to escape.
Yeah. We are born into a certain role, and to an extent, the way we're shaped up and brought up, we have no choice because our parents are human as well, and they're not perfect, and maybe we didn't have parents. But to a certain degree, you can only keep talking about how much of a victim you were up until you're at an age where you can get a job and you can save up and you can hit the gym and you can be more educated. And there's all these opportunities. And yeah, it's about looking at the glass.
Yeah, having a victim. Full. Yeah, having a victim mindset can be like one of the most dangerous things. Yeah,
I see myself.
Everyone is guilty for it
many times.
Yes, like it's a lot. Everyone has it, right? Yeah, but like you can't live your life like that.
Like why'd I go through that? Out of all the people, why me? But then you realize other people have it worse.
Yeah.
You were born in a first world country.
Yes, that's a big thing.
Healthy. And there's always so many things to be grateful for.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think I've been leveraging gratitude so many times. It just enhances so much of life.
We can change any situation around if you just think of it as, I'm grateful to be here. Like, it's crazy.
Grateful to be alive. I know that's something that's just puts things into perspective to me.
It's a big one. I think gratitude is so important because it can literally change the perspective, how you think of things.
Yeah. What advice would you give to others looking to take control of their destiny and pursue a career of life or life path that reflects their true passions?
I think there's like two main big things, but one is just being like, think of what you can gain from taking the risk. Like, at least to me, I feel like you can gain a lot more from taking the risk than you can from just being stable, if that makes sense. Like, really think of everything that you will gain, like internally, emotionally, physically, like maybe financially from just taking the risk. Like, no one great was just content, if that makes sense. I think the other thing too is like, if you really want to do this or you feel like there's more out there for you, living the content life is not going to make you happy. Like, if you're that, like for some people, it makes them really happy and they're very happy just being stable. But like, if your brain is constantly telling you that there's more for you, then listen to it. Because like, my biggest fear is being content in life. And so just realize that being content does not equal happiness. Like, in order to be fully happy, you need to do what you want to do because nothing matters. Literally nothing matters but yourself. Like, obviously, share kindness and be kind to other people. But at the end of the day, you can be whatever you want to be and nothing matters but you. So just create the life that you want and do what you want because being content is not going to make you happy.
When you say being content, what do you mean? Because content, when I say content, I'm at peace. And I think that's...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think maybe when you say content, do you mean... like just going with what everyone else is saying, I see complacent.
Yeah, complacent is a good word. I see content just being like, you know, those people that are just living the life that they were just supposed to with like a spouse that they just don't talk to. It's not great, but it's not bad, if that makes sense. Where it's just like you're just sitting there and you're just like, okay, whatever. It's just
but are
like,
they content about that?
Maybe
though?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if content's the word. I always just said content, but maybe that's not the word. I just mean like where you're just living a life where you're just like floating through it, where you're not like actually present. You're just kind of like, well, I bought this house because I needed my family, my kids to be here. I'm in a relationship that I'm not in love with, but you know what? It's not terrible. So whatever, I'll just stay in it. I'm living in this country that I hate, but could be worse. So I'm just going to stay here. Like just living that life that's just like mediocre that you don't really love.
Mundane.
Yeah, maybe mundane is the right word.
And I think that's almost worse than having a bad life or a bad situation, because when you're in that middle of, okay, my girlfriend isn't the best, but I also don't want to be lonely. Like I'm in this city, like my I don't feel all that close to my family.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they also provide for me.
Yeah.
I don't really, and any change, like it's not bad. It's also not the best.
Yeah.
It's where you're in the middle, and so there's no cue for growth.
Exactly, and that's what I mean.
I think there's an exact term for that.
I need to figure out what that is, because
yeah.
I need to figure that out, because I always, like, when I explain to people, I'm like, I don't want to be content. I don't want to live life just content, like just mundane. But I need to figure out a better word.
I'll message you once I find out.
Yeah.
But
I think my boyfriend actually realized, like, that's where it stemmed from, because he was telling me where before we met, he was, don't mean to be calling him out, but he was in like a relationship where he was just okay. Like, he never thought he was going to leave that person, because like it wasn't bad, but it was just like, you know, she gave him what he needed and they were okay. Yeah. But then when they finally broke up, he realized that someone can give you a lot more, and like you can be so much more happy if you just leave that life of just mundane, right?
Now he's with Aryana.
Now he's with me, and he's just living a life of fulfillment.
The best life. So I think maybe it wasn't him, it was you.
Yeah, exactly.
But are there any last words or?
I don't think so. I think just like follow your heart, literally do whatever it is that you want to do. This is your life. And I think the other thing is just, if you're struggling with something, always just reach out to people, because you're not alone and everyone has something to offer you, and just realize that people are there to help you. And you don't have to battle things on your own, because there's so many people that love you, so many people that are going to help you out. And
there's a majority of the human race. We are good and we do want to help.
Yes.
And yes, I'm very thankful for you coming on the show.
No, thank you.
And telling me about the journey. Yes. I remember just the amount of discipline and effort that you put into gymnastics, and I'm sorry to hear that it has been a traumatizing experience.
That's okay. There was so much good that came out of it.
But still, there's so much good, and you have made these lifelong friends. Yeah. But still, it's inspired you to start a business.
Exactly.
And have a deeper sense of meaning and purpose, and be able to get after the things that are meaningful for you. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on the long-term podcast.
Thank you. That was great.
But as always, to everyone listening and watching, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep out long-term. Aryana Porter, everyone.
Thank you.